I feel like we haven't had a good disagreement in a while. I really enjoyed yesterday's show.
It's just, I found it very funny that you were taking the other side because through the entirety of the lead up to this, you were the one who was ripping on the Flyers for all of this. And then you did like a full 180 once you heard that he wanted to be an NHL player.
Well, the NHL player thing, and I think like the conflation of him and Cutter, while the two combined, it's like, this is bad. I just can't find any similarities other than they happened. And like, if the entire thing comes down to this dude wants an NHL job, it's like, well, me too, bro.
I do think, and I want to make this point.
And I think there's more to it.
I want to make this point that we talked about after the Gauthier stuff, okay, that the Flyers did a very, very good job of PR. And I praised them for it. I'm not saying that they're lying, but I am saying that they understand this market well enough to know that one thing that Philadelphia fans in particular really hate is when players have a sense of entitlement. And by throwing that into the mix, I think they got a lot more people on their side than they would have otherwise. And I do think that, again, not saying they're making it up. I'm just saying that I do think that was very intentional on their part and it worked.
They're not stupid.
Right.
I do like... There's more to this, and that's some of the things I want to get into as we continue and try to move this conversation forward, because it's like, as Danny said, I got to move on. But, like, yeah, I think there's more to it than that. But if part of it is like, yeah, man, I'd be coming. Maybe I didn't love it. Maybe you didn't do all the right things for me. Maybe there's a lot left to be desired. But at the end of the day, Fedotov's in the AHL and I'm in the NHL, I'll be there.
Yeah.
Like, well, then, like, too bad, dude. Like, if that's what it comes down to, all this other stuff is just kind of a gripe, and this is really the crux of the issue. Then, but we won't know. Maybe ever. We won't know for some time.
I think we'll find out more details, because I do think Kolosov at some point is, unlike Gauthier, who I don't know if he's ever going to reveal the real reason. Truly do not know. Like, Kolosov has been communicative with the Flyers throughout all this. It's not like they haven't talked to the Flyers. They didn't pull a Gauthier and just say, no, you can send your franchise legends up to Boston if you want to, but I ain't talking to anybody. I'm not answering your calls. I'm not meeting with you. Kolosov is taking their calls. His agent has met with the Flyers over Zoom at the very least on multiple occasions through this process. And I think at some point they will probably explain their side of this. But I'm not sure if they're ever going to provide an explanation that will be sufficient to Flyers fans who look at this as, if you want to be in the NHL, you got to earn it, kid.
And that's, like, Cutter never has to talk because he got his way.
Yeah, he got his way.
Like, I'm living on the West Coast for a team that really wanted me. Like, he got everything he wanted. He's playing in the NHL this year. He's in Anaheim. Good for him. Who do I have to tell my story to? Doesn't matter. Right. I'm where I want to be.
Right.
Meanwhile, Kolosov, if he wants to play in the NHL, presumably is going to have to address this at some point, whether it's with the media, the Flyers, another team.
Yeah, if he's going to get traded, he's going to have to have a conversation, because the teams that are interested in him are not necessarily going to put him in the NHL right away.
No, so why would they?
Yeah, well, they could if they're high enough on him, but it would be presumably a much larger pool of potentially interested teams if Kolosov says, well, for you, I'll go play wherever for a few months.
I think if there was teams banging down the door for Alexei Kolosov, we never even get to development camp, but this is a potential story.
It's a fair point.
Like, there's some rumblings after Allentown. He wasn't happy. Oh, yeah, he's a Nashville Predator
he's
now.
Gone now. Yeah.
Like,
it's like, it's completely reasonable why teams would not be banging that door down for Alexei Kolosov. He is not a bad prospect. He is an interesting prospect. I think he's a top 10 prospect in the Flyers organization, but he's not a blue chip. He's not a Skarov. Like, he's not on that level by any means. I think what you said, EP had him ranked 19th out of 20. Somebody had him ranked 19th out of 20 in terms of best goalie prospects in the NHL. He's a good prospect. You want a prospect like that in your organization because he has a chance of being something good, if not special. But he's not oh my God, he's available, we need to like roll the Brinks truck up to the Flyers and try to pry him away. He's not necessarily the kind of guy who has the status of, we're trading for you and we want you so bad, we're going to make you the backup in the NHL immediately.
Yeah.
He's not of that level.
So the reaction to your article, has it been people agreeing? Like, what has been the overall?
It's
seemed 50-50 in the comments and the Twitter replies.
Again, I think a lot of Philadelphia fans, not Flyers fans specifically, but Philadelphia fans, it really rubs them the wrong way when they feel like a player or a prospect especially has a sense of entitlement. They respond very well to the idea of, no, you got to earn it, kid. The one response I had to that, though, in my comment section, there was a commenter who was critical of it. And I was like, look, because he said, well, I can't say it was I don't know for sure. But functionally, the argument was Gauthier, and again, I made it clear, like, we really don't know why Gauthier didn't want to be a Flyer. Maybe it had something to do, maybe it didn't. But the argument was two guys who were entitled. I don't want them. They suck. Screw them. Here's my flip side argument. What really is the functional difference between Alexei Kolosov saying I want to be in the NHL, and if I'm not in the NHL, I'm not coming over, and Matvei Michkov and Ivan Fedotov saying the exact same thing? There is no difference. The only difference is the Flyers gave them their way, and they didn't give Kolosov his way. Do you think Matvei Michkov's coming over if he's going to be in the AHL? No freaking chance. Does that mean he's entitled? Well, we don't think he is because we think he should be in the NHL. But functionally, he made almost certainly the exact same demand.
The difference is, like, not everyone gets treated equally in professional sports.
True.
Like, that's the thing, is you get treated as good as you are.
Right.
That's why, like, some criminals get to play and then other ones get cut because they're not that good.
Right.
Like, that happens all the time.
But my point is there is an element of hypocrisy here.
Yeah.
If you're going to say, well, they're not entitled because I like them, but he's entitled because I don't like him.
I think it's the
sense of entitlement exists. And I don't think a sense of entitlement is necessarily a terrible thing for a prospect to have. It means you have confidence in yourself and you believe you should be in the NHL.
Yeah, but also the people around you need to, like, help you be more self-aware.
Okay.
And part of that is the coaches in the organization saying you are not ready for this. You cannot play in this league. You're not very good in the KHL. You're okay. Yeah. You're fine. You're good for your age. You're not an NHL goalie. You're not playing in the NHL.
But by the same token, what proof do we have that Ivan Fedotov is an NHL goalie?
Excessive success in the KHL.
Recently? Not last year. Last year, he was an average KHL goalie on a really good team, whereas Kolosov was a slightly below average KHL goalie on a bad team. I think probably if you weight the quality of team, I think they had probably about the same season in the KHL last year.
Yeah, Fedotov has a longer resume, and he's older, and he has special circumstances. Now, we can get into, is it right to appease those special circumstances?
Fair.
I don't know. But I just think his age and his resume make him, like, this is make or break time. He's not a prospect. Yeah. Like you said, and maybe that's part of the issue with Fedotov is, like, when the Flyers bring over Roman Cechmanek, makes sense. Need a goalie. They're pursuing a Stanley Cup. Mm-hmm. You throw him in there. See if it works or not. It did. He was good. Maybe it does. Maybe it doesn't. It's the risk you take. A rebuilding team, a guy his age, it's like, all right, so he plays out this 2-year contract. We find out he's all right. He's now 30. What do we do? Like, what is even the point of finding this out for the Flyers, except for the fact that I was thinking of this after the show wrapped up last night and just driving home. I'm like, how could I have got Charlie better? I'm like, well, might be a nice trade piece for them in a year.
I just think I don't buy the, like, he is completely in the wrong because he has a sense of entitlement, because my viewpoint is that if you're going to make that argument, you have to make that argument for Ivan Fedotov, who made the same demand. I'm not going to come over unless I am in the NHL. I'm not spending time in the AHL. And in addition, not only am I not going to come over unless I'm in the NHL right away, you got to pay me $3 million plus a year for me to even consider coming over. Like, that's a sense of entitlement too.
Yeah, it's
just the Flyers acquiesced to him and they didn't to Kolosov.
It's a matter of leverage. Some guys have leverage, some guys don't.
But who decides who has the leverage? The Flyers do. The Flyers could have very easily told Fedotov, yeah, we'll have you come over the NHL, but, like, you haven't done crap. We're not giving you $3 million a year. They acquiesce. So suddenly, it doesn't feel like a sense of entitlement. It feels like he won the negotiation. Yeah. Whereas Kolosov, had not the exact same demand, but similar ideas. It's just he didn't win the negotiation, and fans, because there's a predisposition to trust the organization and the team you like, they're like, well, he's entitled because the Flyers think he's this and he thinks he's this. I'm just saying I don't think it's quite fair to hold the two Russian or Belarusian, one's Belarusian, one's Russian, to different standards because one guy the Flyers agreed with and one they didn't.
Except one already signed the contract.
Okay. That's
fair point. He
point.
lost the negotiation.
Fair.
I mean, the ALC is not really a negotiation. It is what it is, but there's bonuses and stuff, I guess. But this is the agreement. You can sign it, or you can just not.
He changed his mind.
Yeah,
that is very true.
He changed his mind post.
Yeah.
Fedotov never changed his mind.
Yeah.
He was arrested.
Yeah, true.
And put on an aircraft carrier. And then, the KHL decided, we're tearing up the memorandum of agreement, and we don't think tolling contracts exists. So he's ours again.
Right.
And all these things happened.
Yeah.
And then eventually, yes, they get him over on, that ELC that I guess still sort of existed. And then...
Kind of.
And then he
it
played,
existed when they wanted it to exist.
It was sure, okay. And then they give him the off-season contract, and now that's really his first deal. But he had leverage. Kolosov doesn't, because he signed already. That's the same thing with Connor Gauthier. He had all the leverage because it was yeah, man, if you want the 5th pick in the 2nd round a couple of years from now, sure, you'll get something for me, or trade me now.
Right. I mean, that's functionally what they got. They got what is probably going to be around that pick in the Drysdale trade, and they got Drysdale.
Exactly. Yeah, they got basically that pick and him. It's all right, cool, and maybe Drysdale's awesome.
Maybe he's a boat.
Yeah, maybe. I was really trying not to say it, but yes, exactly. And he just didn't have that kind of leverage. And yeah, if he doesn't like it here, he doesn't want to come here. That is, I suppose, his right. But he ain't never going to play in the NHL then. The Flyers have to do exactly nothing. This is now on, does Kolosov want a North American career or not? Because if he does, he has to acquiesce at some point.
And to be clear, I don't think the Flyers are even necessarily wrong for doing what they did. Their viewpoint, and they may be right, 100% right. Their viewpoint is that if we acquiesce to Kolosov and we were to, let's say we could just tear up the Fedotov, and they can't do this, but let's say in a world they can. Just tear up the Fedotov contract, exile him to somewhere, and then Kolosov, okay, you're our number 2, come over. They believe, and I think they honestly believe this, is that would be the wrong thing for his development, that he is not ready. He needs to have some time in the AHL, at least a few months, if not a whole season, to adjust to the North American game, to have our goalie coaches work with him, to have our training staff work with him, and then he can earn his way up. And they think that it would be a negative for his development to toss him into the NHL. So if they believe that this isn't a matter of deciding between, well, do we get Kolosov or do we not? This is a matter of deciding, do we get Kolosov and give him the best chance of being a good player in the long term, or do we screw him up by acquiescing to his irrational demand and then have him end up having to have this conversation in a month anyway because he's got an .850 save percentage and he stinks. I think that is a reasonable way for the Flyers to look at it. I don't think they're necessarily wrong in believing that. I don't know, because they have a lot more information about the development and the talent level of Kolosov. They've watched him way more than I have. And they know a hell of a lot more about goalies than I ever will, at least the people presumably making the evaluation decisions about the goalies. That's fair. My point in that article has always been, these are now 2 guys, 2 top 10 prospects in the organization in 1 calendar year that you lost. And I'm not sure what exactly is wrong, but this can't keep happening if you want a rebuild to work. If every year you're going to lose 20% of your top 10 because you can't figure out how to get them acclimated and integrated into your organization.
We all silly like the mayor.